Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Ball. Speedball might yet win it here for Wolves. Blasting the shot. What a goal!
Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Wolves Fancast. We were with you last night for the aches and pains of the Bournemouth draw, and now we're with you again for more cathartic release. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Rich Hobbs here. I'm joined with Gully, Jafo, and Tom. How are you all feeling tonight, gents?
Roller coaster, innit? Roller coaster today.
It's just a bit more exciting than what we usually have, which is absolutely jack shit usually. So, beats that.
Is it? Because shouldn't Bruno have had all of his transfers through the door pre-season day one? Wasn't that a plan, really?
It never happens, does it? Never happens.
We've been sucked into this whole transfer deadline day drama, almost, haven't we? You know, where there's all sorts of shit going on. You just want to be able to go to the party. You want an invite to the party, don't you? So we can say we made a transfer on deadline day. But I found really funny is a lot of probably Sky Sports journalists in general as well. You see him on Twitter talking a lot about this team is looking to do business. This team, there's really vague tweets. Basically,
I love a vague transfer tweet.
Like trying to keep everybody interested until the last minute of deadline day for no good reason, really. We could all probably do with an extra half hour's kip. Well, probably an hour, really, for me. I don't mind getting into bed at 10 if I can help it. But we've just got to stick it out, haven't we? That's the way it has to be.
I mean, you know who I feel sorry for today is Craig Dawson, because he has been up and down the M40 today. He's been coming to Wolves. He's not been coming to Wolves, but the status quo hasn't changed. You know what I mean? He's still a West Ham player, and it's just like, yeah, sometimes it's just fueling it sometimes. But unlike previous seasons when we've done this, it has kind of felt like, you say, things are happening, whether it's positive or negative, ingoing, outgoing, stuff's been happening today. And, you know, not just that we've signed someone who's going to be playing for Grasshoppers Zurich next week as well. So, we'll do the ones which have actually happened, and then we'll talk about ones which potentially might still happen with, you know, an hour and a half still to go. The first one, but I think it's a big one to pull up, and it's a one that surprised me most today. And Danny P's knocked it up in the comments. Is what's our reaction to the shock departure of Flavio from the Wolves Esports team? Has Jeff got to go?
You just knew that the esports team had to steal the headlines eventually, didn't you? We know where our priorities lie.
For brass, but I know the timing can't be helped. But the brass must do that on transfer deadline day with the narrative around esports, with the narrative around Wolves. I tell you what, that is a throwing grenade level tweet.
It's clearly deliberate as well. It's clearly deliberate. They couldn't wait 12 hours. It's just, it's so obvious.
But in genuine terms, if we've lost a player or they've departed for bigger and better things, that is a blow to the brand and the club, isn't it? I'm assuming. Like, we've not let him go willingly, I assume.
Yeah.
You know, any esports fans out there, get in touch and let us know how big a story this is.
I was going to say, I'd be keen to know. We're mocking it, but this could be as bigger outgoing as we've ever seen. But what I want to talk about first is Leander Dendoncker, who has moved to our rivals Aston Villa in what I think is a bit of a perplexing transfer, to be honest, because it feels like we're helping a rival as much as anything else. Gully, I'll start with you first. I mean, player-wise, I know we've kind of always been on sort of a relatively similar page in terms of what we think about Dendoncker, that he is just average player, and I don't mean that badly. He's just a good player and potentially underused in this squad. But do you think the time was right for him to to move on?
It's probably along the lines of what a few of the deals that we've made this summer, whereby players have kind of just come to a natural end to their time at the club, especially the likes of Cody, Willy Boly, Sace as well. You know, that back three, you know, in its entirety has disappeared. And the next man in line who wasn't really an asset that necessarily, you know, was an absolute imperative to retain was probably Dendoncker. I kind of tweeted out earlier that I think Dendoncker is the kind of player who would keep you in a game, but he's not going to win it for you. And I think that's kind of the job he's done, you know, throughout his time at Wolves. He was a bit of a slow burner to begin with. He didn't get into the team for a good few months. And you saw when he did that, he added a dimension. We had the extra man in midfield at that point. You know, the Jota Jimenez partnership where he flourished off the back of it. But he was there to kind of facilitate things rather than really take control of anything. And I think ultimately, like you say, he served his purpose as a Wolves player, and he's helped us become an established Premier League side. And you can't knock him for that. It was a good transfer overall, and you know, I wish him well. Aside from the fact he's gone to play for Villa.
I was say, because how much did he officially sign for Wolves in the end? Because it feels like the fee is almost
it's about 12, I think.
Yeah,
it's 12.
So
So
he's 12 basically left for 12.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Tom, do you ever think that he ever actually played in his best position in a Wolves shirt, or what we deem to be his best position? Because I think that's always been a bit of a sticking point. As you know, he looks like he's a midfielder playing as a defender. He looks like a defender playing as a midfielder. You know.
Yeah, he had a spell. I mean, obviously was it the second season we had when he was playing at centre half for a prolonged period of time, and then last season he had that bizarre wide right sort of advanced attacking midfielder hybrid bizarre role that he tried to pigeonhole him into. So yeah, I wouldn't say he was here long enough to, I'd say, have enough games in centre mid. Granted, he's more of a 6, isn't he? But he was probably often played as an 8. But you're not going to oust Neves from a 6 role, so you know you've got to take what you've got. I think. I don't think he could say he's not had enough chances. And like you say, he's not played badly. He's just. Could you name 3 or 4 games where he's had like an 8 or 9 out of 10? Because I probably couldn't. But at the same time, I couldn't tell you many games where he's had like a 4 or 5 either. He's just that sort of between 6 and 7 out of 10 type player, really.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I think I was trying to think of notable games he's played. I think that first season at Goodison Park, where he scored that volley with the left foot, stands out for me in terms of being a borderline complete midfield performance. And he's always someone who suffered from not exactly being a glamorous player, which when you're alongside Neves and Moutinho, it's always going to be a struggle for him to stand out, because he's not. Despite his size, he was never like the most physically imposing players either. Fair to say?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not overly happy it's happened. I'll be honest. I'd rather have kept him. I'll be truthful, but especially because you know the last 3 games, Bruno's played 3 in the middle, hasn't he? So
yes,
if you're playing 2 in the middle, it's less of a loss. You know, so I don't know. It's a tricky one. Also, you've got the fact that we'll probably come on to Traore later, as in centre mid Traore. You've got someone who's tried and tested in Dendoncker, where you're taking a bit of a punt on someone who's been lower league of France. So it's one of those risk reward type swaps.
Yeah, let's talk about the transfer then, because at time of recording, we only have. I mean, this is hopefully going to change in the next hours, we say, but we've only really got 3 senior central midfielders again in Neves, Nunes, and Moutinho, with Connor Ronan and Hodges backup, you could argue, and that's a bit worrying, especially say for the first 3 games this season. It's been a relatively flat 3-man midfield. It's been very much a 3, hasn't it? And I don't know. Personally, I'd have kept him. And even if we I'd have kept him even if we'd bought Traore personally. But maybe from the player's perspective, do you guys think that would, do you think that's something that Dendoncker would buy into, or do you think he'd very quickly find himself being fifth choice, which in a World Cup year, being a season pro, he might not want personally?
Yeah, I think you just knocked it straight on the head. I just think he's going to be one of these guys who's, like as I said last night, he's want to get game time just so he knows he can cement that his side, himself in the side for Belgium, because he's not irreplaceable for that team. There are other people who can come in and play in his position for the Belgian national team. So he's going to want to be playing in a team week in, week out. And at Aston Villa, he's got that chance. I spoke to a few Villa fans today. They're desperate to get a player like him in there because they're struggling for. I know they've just signed the Bednarek from Southampton, so they're a bit more stocked at centre back, but they need players who can play in there, so who can have a centre back option and a centre mid option because they're desperate for players. And McGinn's really had a bad start to the season as well, so they want options, they want ability to change things around, and that's something that they've lacked up there. So it's a good move for him. But as you said, Tom, I think it's a bad move for us because we've weakened ourselves and strengthened the rival.
It's an interesting one because I think I live in the middle of kind of Villa country. I work with a lot of Villa fans and stuff, and I chatting to some today. I don't think they really know what they're getting in for in terms of Dendoncker, and it's quite telling that having been a seasoned kind of Premier League player for 4 years, you're not really sure what he is and what he does. Which partly I think is to do with the fact that we as a team and as a club have always kind of been system over kind of individual players anyway. And the system is really kind of dictated, whose characteristics kind of shone. And the midfield was always going to be built around Ruben Neves and his passing range and maybe Moutinho kind of pulling the strings a little bit and stuff. So then Dendoncker was always kind of the odd one out. I would be very surprised if he turns out round and starts playing as a cover centre-half. And, I mean, they like to play a bit of a diamond in there, don't they, it seems. And really, he's got just as much competition in there as he probably would have had at Wolves, if you look at the fact that they've got Jacob Ramsey, who I think is a bit of a Steven Gerrard favourite. Douglas Luiz doesn't look like he's going anywhere at the moment. John McGinn is now the captain as well, lest we forget. So he's not walking into a situation where he's going to be an automatic starter unless they've kind of promised him that he might be. The other question is, because I think Boubacar Kamara can actually play centre half as well, and whether he sits in the front of the back four in his place. But you know what, it's their problem to kind of solve now. I think we should be looking at this as, especially with the likelihood of a replacement actually coming in, as a bit of an opportunity, because you've got to create a pathway for people if you're going to bring people to the club at the end of the day. And that's what we've done, I think, by moving Dendoncker on.
Yeah, and I think you could argue that he isn't the most dynamic of footballers, and I think that's always been something that's slightly held him back, and that's very clearly what Bruno Lage wants in the midfield when you look at Nunes and when you look at the imminent arrival of Traore as well. But I was under the impression that, I'll say, in the last 24 hours anyway, that Donk was going to go to Villa essentially as a replacement for Douglas Luiz. And like, I was a bit frustrated. It's like, we had the chance to actually do one over on arrival there. Because, you've got this triangle, you've got this sequence. Could have just waited until they sold Douglas Luiz and go, no, we're not going to sell to you. I'd have almost rather we'd have sold him to Villa. No, so sold him to Newcastle, sold him to Everton, and, leave them with the shortcoming, because now that, there's an imbalance that we potentially we could have had all the cards, but now we've lost one and Villa have gained one and kept hold of one as well. And that's frustrating for me. And me being a pessimistic Wolves fan, I'm like, what if this Traore deal doesn't come off? And I know it's looking like he's, we're going to get the announcement any minute now, but my head just goes, is Moutinho's going to have 35 games this season again on both legs?
I think you've seen from some of the dealings we've done recently, though, we're not a club that's going to look to burn bridges with other clubs. It's almost like, we do most of our dealings in good faith, because you never know when you're going to need a player off someone who might be available for you at a decent, price, opportunity, etc., etc. And whilst from our perspective as fans, it might sound quite enticing that we can rub it in, on Friday morning to all of our Villa mates that, you know what, we had your pants down on that one, didn't we? Blah, blah, blah. And I think a lot of fans have been quite intent on Leeds maybe picking up Hwang on that basis, probably. I've never seen a bigger campaign for a player to move to another club from his current set of fans over a transfer window than that one. But yeah, the club, I don't know whether it's a careful what you wish for kind of thing in terms of, maybe we've got to just rein it in a little bit on the banter side of things. We don't want to become a banter club ever, let's be fair.
No, never go full Arsenal. Most definitely. I mean, in terms of talking about sides who have, I guess, dealing with good faith, Nottingham Forest we've had dealings with over the summer, and we'll hopefully talk about Gibbs-White and Outgoings later on. Apparently, Villa won't, what have they gained? 50,000 sideways passes. Maybe, yeah.
There's a few backward ones in there as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, you look his Dendoncker's progressive passes. We looked at him at the end of the season, and it is genuinely upsetting to look at. It is a lot of recycling, but yeah,
it fits in well then with the current system, then, doesn't it? If it's all recycling, it's perfect for us at the moment.
Yeah.
Get us the wings, come back a little bit, go forward again, back a little bit.
I don't know how he didn't get a game yesterday, to be honest.
I know, it's ideal for him, wasn't it?
What's the phrase you use, Gully? It's a U. It's just like it goes up, round and back.
Carving a U shape into the pitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to pick up. I've got Sky Sports' feed up on my other screen, and Coventry City have done the novel thing of announcing that they've finished all their business. So that all their fans can go to bed, basically, I guess, which is fair enough.
I do. Do you remember Leeds a couple of years ago when they did an announcement at like 9 o'clock, being like, "Stay tuned, Leeds fans, we might have some news coming," and it's like we've sold 2 of our players. It was like 2 first-team players. It was so annoying.
Sorry, I just need to come back at Stu just because his performance on last night's pod was slightly concerning, because if you listen to what he said, he'd have had you selling every single player within our squad, and we'd have been left with literally the 4 of us probably turning up to play on Saturday. So Stu, have a little word with yourself, mate, and think about what you said.
I don't know. Anyway, right, Willy Boly transfer. Again, that much more so from Dendoncker, because I think that was just an interesting transfer overall. That's felt like its relationship has come to an end, and it's a little bit sad, to be honest, because Gully, I know you put on Twitter and your Molyneux Musings tag about best defender since Joleon Lescott at his peak, and the decline's a bit sad for me because he was bloody brilliant for us, but we kind of we haven't been seeing it in a year and a half.
Probably, but again, it's that natural conclusion to a player who has served us well. Unbelievable in that championship season and the first season back, I'd say, as well, in the Premier League in that 2018-19 campaign. I mean, he's probably the ideal player to kind of slot into that back 3 system that Nuno brought in, because we had Ryan Bennett in there, we had Cody, but we needed probably a centre half who was going to genuinely be of a class that was way too good for the level to really cement our place in there. If we'd have had, I don't know, maybe it was Courtney House. Well, Miranda or Courtney House was probably one of the other players that could have slotted into that space. Would we have been as formidable? Maybe, I don't know. But you just knew that he was way too good for the championship, and it was that calmness on the ball that I think really struck everybody. He was so relaxed, and Cody spoke of the fact that he has to be on his case a little bit during games and things, and he was a bit too laid back at times. But at the same time, when the level went up, so did he. And that 7th place finish, a lot of it was down to him in that defence, really turning up the performance levels.
Yeah, Tom, I'm guessing sort of similar thoughts from yourself. To be honest, I guess to say just a shame that he's really not had much of a feature in the last, particularly last season. He really struggled to find any form of fitness, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I just remember back to that Norwich game last season, and Pookie just ran him ragged. And at that point, you're thinking, yeah, okay, I think your time's up there. But yeah, echo what Gully said. What a signing, what a player, like absolute colossus. He's just a beast. Everything dominant in the air, great on the ball. Never let anyone round him, past him, things like that. It was hard to remember him at too many errors early doors. He was just the perfect player at the perfect time for us. And yeah, just like head injuries done for Raul, I think COVID did for Boly, and he just wasn't the same since that alleged long COVID. Again, that Burnley game, was his first game back, I think, after it. I mean, that's probably one of the worst performances I think I've ever seen from a centre half. It was so bad, like it's like he wasn't even there, sort of thing. So, I don't think we're going to miss much by not having him. Although, I think I would want a replacement in. I wouldn't want to go into the season with Toti Mosquera as 3 and 4. So it's a shame the Dawson deal didn't come off, because I think it'd have been a good addition.
Yeah, I say that pulls on nicely to, I guess, another transfer rumour that I think Jafo we spoke about yesterday about Jason Denier in the Normative Determinism Club. Do you feel that move's very much more likely now that let's say the Dawson one's not going to come off?
Yeah, it felt like going into today that the Dawson one being the main one made a lot of sense. He's got a lot more Premier League experience, and probably would have been, even though Denier's on a free, probably still would have been cheaper because his wages probably would have been a little bit lower, and the situation with that because he's a little bit older. But it's somebody that can target now. I mean, there was reporting the other day that it was serious conversations, so it was quite a way down the line. So, and we can sign free agents up to a certain point after the window anyway. So we're not rushed to get it done today. But yeah, it's somebody that should definitely be looking at. And if there is concrete interest, he's going to offer a lot to the squad because he's got a lot of experience. He's played Champions League games. He's played in good teams in France. It seems like a no-brainer, really. On a free as well. He'll only have experience, and that'd be fantastic to substitute in with our guys. Who are still quite young, Kilman and Collins. So adding that in, he's only going to bring them up and help them improve.
Yeah, good. Am I right in thinking he can also provide a bit of cover at fullback as well? Have I made that up?
No, I think he can. I think he's played in a bit of a holding role as well. I think he'd be okay at fullback, but probably limited, as most centre halves that kind of fill in that position tend to be. But I think the loser in that situation in terms of Boly moving on is definitely Mosquera, because I think he really could do with just a full season of football. I think the last time he probably did that was back in Colombia. I don't even know how many games he actually played when he was back in Colombia. So it's disappointing for him because I don't see him necessarily getting too much game time. Totti is very much the third choice here. And I'll be pretty comfortable with Totti coming into the team as and when required. But Mosquera is a bit of an unknown quantity to us all, I think, at this point.
Yeah, to update you on his Mosquera stats, he's essentially only played like 16 career games, 17 if he played in the League Cup for us once last season. He played 16 times in essentially a year of football for 2020 and 2021. So 26 in total, including some tournament games over in Colombia. So it's not an awful lot of experience, and I appreciate it's difficult to break into a team and to having that balance between experience and form and things like that. But you say he's someone who needs a loan, and I think the
Sorry,
Gully's got
I had a gem from the deadline day stream. It's not a transfer. Well, it is a transfer. We probably already know by now, everybody, that Martin Dubravka has gone to Man United on a season-long loan.
Yeah.
But his agent has tweeted saying congratulations on the move and all that. His agent being the one and only Cherno Samba of Championship Manager fame.
No.
Who knew that? Who knew that he'd made a career out of the game? I'm so glad for him because I'm sure many of us are very appreciative of his efforts for their team.
I was going to say he's delighted many an evening alone, but it's always nice when you hear a name like that. It just pops up out of nowhere. Oh no, I appreciate that. In terms of incoming signings, fingers crossed. I mean, we don't need to sign Denier tonight. I believe anyway we can still sign him after the window closes because it's a free transfer. Personally, I'd like to get it done just in case someone else, because there seems to be a market for another centre half from about basically, I think all the clubs who are competing for, arguably top 6 outside of the top 6. So us, West Ham, Leicester, Villa, all seem to be on the lookout for another centre half. And if Craig Dawson ain't going, I know Vestergaard's. Has Vestergaard moved now? I know it was in talks of him moving at one point. But there's a clear market.
He wasn't in the squad today. He wasn't in the squad tonight. So, and they've just blown the final today, and they've lost 1-0 the M6 to Wolverhampton, I assume, at this point. Yeah.
There's loads of teams have either signed a centre half or after a centre half. I think Southampton were looking at getting that Chaleta Sari we were linked to last summer.
Yeah.
Obviously West Ham were looking for cover. Leicester needed someone to cover for Fana, who went. Villa were after someone. I mean, would you put it past Forest to try and sign Denier after the window closed? Let's face it, they sign everyone else. I think you leave yourself open to the teams all panic that they don't think they've got enough business done. And we're obviously going to be in that boat now. So, like you said, I completely agree, Rich. The sooner you get it done, the better, really.
Well, they're on 23 now, aren't they? Forest.
Bloody hell.
Serge Aurier is about to be confirmed.
It's crazy.
It's mad. How many did Blackpool sign in that one season? Was it Blackpool? And they couldn't register them or something? They signed too many that they couldn't even register them all. I think it was Blackpool. I might be wrong.
It's like, how's that possible? I say, how's it possible? Must be such a Herculean task for them. How do you integrate 23 players into a squad? Honestly, I've been trying to work it out and I couldn't be asked to do the maths. They've signed 23 in one window. How many windows is that for Wolves to sign a senior first team player? It must be about 4 or 5.
Yeah, you can't even class it as doing a Fulham anymore because they've probably doubled what Fulham signed in that one season.
Yeah,
it'll always as long as they get relegated, it will now be doing a Forest.
That's it. Yeah, they've renamed it at least.
Yeah. So big deal through the door, which is Arthur has joined Liverpool from Juventus on loan. That's confirmed now.
Oh, so Neves is staying then. Happy days.
Well, yeah. Somehow, Arsenal fans will link that to Neto joining them, won't they? Some really convoluted way.
Yeah.
I didn't get that Neto rumour. I'm sorry, I don't understand why Arsenal necessarily. It seems just come about because Neto's quite good at football. Because they already have players.
Not based on the way he's played this season. Jesus.
Well, yeah. I mean, he has impressively managed to play his way out of a transfer.
I think he might have done, actually. Yeah, that's fair. At the moment, he's playing his way out of a freaking World Cup spot at this rate as well.
I mean, he's trying hard enough to play his way out of a Wolves shirt at the moment. It's just lucky that we don't have the players. I was going to say, so we've talked defenders. Essentially, who's going to replace Boly? Let's talk about the potential replacement for Leander Dendoncker. It feels like it is going to happen any minute, to be honest, as I sort of said. But after it feels like weeks, doesn't it? That We've finally agreed, as far as I'm aware, a deal with Mets to sign Bamba Traore on a season-long loan with the option of around a 11 million transfer at the end of it. Again, he seems to tick all the boxes for a dynamic midfielder that we don't necessarily have right now. Goody, do you have much of a lowdown? Do you have much of a spark on him at the moment? You sort of happy with it at the moment?
Just one in from Stu, ITK Stu. He was our roving reporter tonight. But yeah,
a man very familiar with a purple dildo.
Oh, let's not get into that side of Stu's life. Yeah, I can't say I know too much about him personally. General, reaction is to run to FBref these days for this kind of stuff, and I think you can see from the metrics that he's a very intense footballer. He offers a lot in terms of pressure on the ball, and I think the best way to look at it is you want him to retain some of the characteristics of Dendoncker's game, and you hope he does in terms of that running power, bit of a physical presence, getting about the pitch, but then probably build on that in terms of his ability on the ball to make things happen and carry it, perhaps. So I guess it remains to be seen. I'm happy with the fact that it's only an option to buy, it seems, as well. So if he is a bit of a dud, then we've got that get out clause. It might be the case, I don't know, that if he plays a certain amount of games, we have to fulfill that as well, though. So let's see. I'm excited to see us sign another player who isn't from the Mendes stable again, who we appear to have done quite a lot of diligent work on from a recruitment and scouting perspective, because that's not always appeared to be the case on the face of it anyway. I know people like to reference the 5,000 player database that I think Scott Sellers might have come out with once upon a time. It's down to 4,999 now, so we better fill it back up with somebody else.
One less to worry about. I mean, I'll see if I can quickly share. I do have his FBref stats actually, and I mean, a lot of it I think makes for interesting reading, and it very much sums up what you've said. To be honest, very high in dribbles completed, which is great. Very high in pressures, tackles, and blocks, which again seems to be the sort of thing that we're after. Someone who can play with a bit of intensity and snap at the heels. Passing completion, passing attempts, both quite low, and so's the stuff in the final thirds regarding goals and assists as well. So, do you feel he is very much that replacement for Dendoncker, but gives us that slightly different edge that I think we've all missed from him? Tom?
Yeah, but I can't say I know a lot about him, to be honest. I mean, someone who like me with those metrics. I mean, Jaffer, you might be the one for this, but surely his pressures and tackles are higher because he's in a team that are lower down the league, and his progressive passes, assists, goals, and things like obviously low because again he's at a team down the bottom. Or is it worked out as a sort of percentage based or against similar players?
Well, to a degree, yeah. I mean, it's down to the fact that they are under a lot more pressure as a team, and they are playing on the back foot. The one thing that we haven't had this season is somebody within that metric. He's performing quite well. He's in terms of pressures. Worryingly enough, the guy who has been top of the pressures table for the last couple of weeks outside the top six is João Palhinha. And that's something that we haven't done, is we haven't played so much on the front foot through midfield. I think as you alluded to the other day, Gully, and we joked about earlier, is that we are playing in this sort of U-shape, and that's where our pressures and play are coming from. And there's not much coming through the middle of the park, which is worrying because we have three very, very good, talented midfielders, especially somebody in Ruben Neves who can put a lot of good pressure on, get a lot of interceptions and tackles that he's done in the last few years. So to bring somebody in who can do that and be another option and help us control a game in where we've struggled in the last couple of years is good, because we've allowed ourselves to come under pressure in a lot of games. And I think essentially you go back to certainly Newcastle last season when Joe Linton and Gomeris run the show, and we got absolutely dominated in midfield because there was no ability to put pressure on them. Is somewhere where we can improve, and bringing in somebody who's got such good stats in there, hopefully that'll translate to the Premier League. I
think sometimes you have to accept though, that there are players that are better without the ball, and there are better players that are better with the ball. Forgive me for harking back a few years now, but I always remember like Dave Edwards' best spell, I thought, as a Wolves player was in a midfield with Kevin McDonald and Jack Price. He kind of sat behind the striker in that Kenny Jackett team. And essentially, there was no onus on Dave Edwards to get involved in build-up play and things because you had two really tidy midfielders sat behind him who could progress the ball into our dangerous strikers. And essentially, Dave Edwards' job was to run about and get on the end of things. He tended to get dragged at about 70 minutes, I think, in those times because he probably absolutely run himself into the ground. But then when you saw him play a little bit deeper, probably you're talking more like Paul Lambert days and, that season where there's more responsibility on him to actually make the play. He really showed up his limitations as a player. So you'd hope that with Traore, while clearly his off-the-ball work appears to be very good, that if we do get into situations where there are games against like the likes of Bournemouth, he's not going to be a negative for our possession game, like Dendoncker probably would be in that sort of situation.
I see a point. Like Pogba made that's the point, didn't he? He said, like people are saying, that he plays great for France. He's got Kante behind him. Kante does all the running, all the dirty work, and it lets Pogba do what the hell he wants, basically, because you've got someone behind there who you know is just going to cover you. So I think, it is good. I think every player needs a team like that. And we haven't had that for a while, really, have we? Sort of, everyone harks back to it, like the Alfred and Dye sort of role. I think a team needs a player like that every now and then. And like I say, if he's running around putting pressures on and stuff and we're behind in a game or we're chasing a game or we want to hold on to a game, it's probably a good player to bring off the bench as well.
Well, that's one of the things we've been poor at this season is we've allowed teams to play through our middle too easily. And there's a few times where you've seen that especially, I remember talking about Newcastle again, but especially against Newcastle, we allowed them to progress the passes. There was 3 or 4 passes through our midfield and into the wide areas for them to create opportunities and create chances. And that's where we've got to improve. And and if it's something that they've really focused on and noticed, and as a club they've said, okay, we need to cut this out, then that's great because then they're using what's obviously there and needs to be improved. But it's something that we've got to do. We've got to make ourselves hard to play against. I mean, the one thing that we're poor with is we don't have a very good home record. We need to have this sort of Fortress Molineux, and getting in players like this should hopefully help us to create that and to create a defensive solution to allow our very, very good attacking players to go out there and create chances and score goals.
I think there's 2 ways to look at it, though, which is we've always been a pretty good team at picking the ball up on the back foot. Someone like Traore, you'd like to think because maybe he's got that mobility and that kind of, natural athleticism to press, he'll allow you to win the ball on the front foot, and that's something we're really not good at. I think we've tried. I've seen Neves kind of pressing centre halves, already at points in this season. And while it's game and it's a good effort to actually have that intention, he's not physically built to have that kind of sharpness in acceleration to go and snap into tackles when, he arrives at that situation. So, probably prime example is someone like Kante. His ability to shift his feet so quickly and snap into a tackle allows him to actually make those situations work. There's one thing reading it, but sometimes you just haven't got the physical capacity to actually do that kind of stuff. So you'd hope, when the ball drops into, I don't know, the deepest midfielder in the opposition and Traore is onto him as quickly as he possibly can, it's going to stop them playing. We win it in a higher place up the pitch. And then you're creating a situation where, as we know, we're not good against deep set defenses, but you've got much less to kind of contend with with our attacking players and players like Neto, and that can actually take advantage from those situations.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's where we've struggled, is trying to win the ball up the pitch 15, 20 yards further the pitch to try and create these quick transitions and try and quick counter attacks, because we've got talented players who can do that, who can benefit from that. Like you say, Neto get the best out of it. Pedence, Guedes now, and these guys will benefit from a little bit more chaos being created, especially in the final third, and that's sort of what we've struggled with is having these sort of like quick transitions and quick methods of players, because we've been overplaying a lot this season, and to create things that are just off the cuff. That's going to be where we score a lot more goals, and that's where we're going to create the chances to allow us to score more goals, which is one thing that we've been poor at, because, like I say, we've been overplaying and drawing out play. So winning the ball, say, like you say, 20 yards further up the pitch is going to be great for us.
Definitely. I think one of the things that always hits me is when we're playing that deep, is it knackers the players out, because they quite literally have to run more of the pitch to progress the play. So it definitely ticks all the boxes, and hey, you hope that we can kind of end up going to, say, a two-man midfield for majority of games. I mean, you've got reasonable cover for either side of, Neves and Nunes, let's say. Stu does ask a very good question. Now it looks like we're going to have two Traores. How will they be referred to? Stu suggested for Booba Matip, makes sense to him. I mean, Adama essentially goes by his first name, doesn't he? It's ubiquitous with him. If you say Adama, you know who he is. So,
and funnily enough, we know there's many Adama. There's not just one Adama Traore.
Yeah,
no,
but there is just one Adama. So, yeah.
Exactly. I was saying, I'm right in thinking Hull City have signed an Adama Traore.
Yeah.
Recently, it's you'll find them. You'll find them.
Stu would probably rather swap him for that one. No,
yeah. I think that's an interest. I mean, I guess kind of drags us on nicely to the window as a whole. Before kind of we look through who we've signed and who we've sold. Do you think the best bit of business that we've done is someone who we've actually kept hold of in Ruben Neves? Do you think actually that is the highlight of the window, even beyond signing Mateus Nunes, for example?
I'll put them on the same level, I think. Well, I know we haven't seen much from Nunes yet. I'm sure it'll click. I think they're both big statements, I think. Or I can't decide if there's just no one who really came in for Neves, to be honest.
Yeah. Would it have been a bigger statement? Yeah. Would it have been a bigger statement if he just signed a new contract, Neves?
Yeah, that's different, I think. Yeah, that's more of a statement than him actually staying. Part of me feels a bit, I shouldn't do, part of me feels a bit guilty that he's still playing for us, to be honest, especially watching that bag of shit last night. I feel like he shouldn't be playing for us, basically, playing that sort of shite. He should be up the top. Look at what Jota's done. He could walk into any team in the league, as far as I'm concerned. And he's given us, what's his 6th year of service, will it be? I mean, that's incredible, really. I mean, what a guy. But yeah, fantastic. I mean, if you'd have said you could generate the cash that we've generated this summer without selling Neves, I'd have said you were laughing. And you could, or Neves, Neto, Kilman, Aït-Nouri, managed to keep all of those, but still generate, 65, 70 mil? And I'd potentially Cody going off the back of that at the end of the season. It's been a pretty good season for Outgoings, to be fair.
Sorry, guys, just a couple of Premier League deals gone through. Southampton signed another child, as is the way. They've got a Football Manager board requests is clearly signed players under the age of 5. Juan Larios from Man City, Spain under-19 fullback. And also, Everton have completely signed of James Garner from Man United. It's proper Lampard signing, that.
It's not what they need, is it?
It's so Frank Lampard.
It's just not what they need, not what they're doing.
That's a funny one. I mean, there's a bit of, I was going to say, I feel a bit. Well, I'm very hypocritical. I'm like, I can't really slate Everton's transfers and stuff like that when I look at our ship at the moment. But I think the Wolves have almost stuck to a plan this year. And you know what? We've got rid of quite a few players, whether it's releasing them or moving them off the books. But you look what Wolves have done in terms of signing Nathan Collins, getting in Guedes, getting in Nunes, and getting in Kaladic. That's a spine of a team we've improved. And I think definitely on paper, all of them improve our first 11 and improve on positions as well, which isn't something we're really familiar with in the last few years at Wolves in terms of the number of signings. I mean, I can't remember if Hwang technically falls under this window or whether it was in the January transfer window. I can't quite remember how it sits in the end. But in terms of the players who've come in, you've thrown a centre midfielder, which should happen. You've thrown potentially a defender, which should hopefully happen in Dendoncker. On the face of it, if you step away from, I guess, the feelings around the club's performance at the moment, that's a solid transfer window, right?
Yeah, it feels like a good evolution, which is what we needed.
Yeah.
I think it was more of an evolution more than a revolution that we needed, and these players have come in alongside a lot of the stalwarts who are still there. I mean, like you said, Moutinho is still here, Neves is still here, Jimenez is still here. So it feels like more like like a changing of the guard. Like I know Moutinho eventually will leave. Jimenez is gonna, he's looking like he's not the same player that he was. So bringing in these players alongside who we've already got is good because it feels like a natural progression rather than shipping players out, losing 5 or 6 players, bringing 7 players in and being in the same sort of boat as what Forest are doing. Feels a little bit more natural and feels like, we're progressing with an ethos of the club and we've got like sort of a rolling production line of bringing through players now, which is good. And like you say, it's like the spine of a team. These players, they can take their time to integrate, and they can, be brought into the team as slowly as possible. There's no pressure on Nunes now to come in and be this fucking world beater. There's no pressure on him. Initially, to a degree.
Unless you listen to Little Dan talking about it on the podcast where we kind of discussed it. Because there's a lot of pressure based on that one, I think.
It's a lot of money, but like I say, because we've got a certain amount of players still there. I know we're still a bit short in midfield, but we've still got a certain amount of players there, so we can rotate him in and out of the squad. And Sasha hopefully will give the fireworks to Jimenez to get him going again. So we've got a decent squad depth now, which is the one thing that we were crying out for at the first game of the season. I mean, we are now a far cry from that bench at Leeds. And that's something that's been addressed and something that needed to be addressed. And the club should really be applauded for that. Definitely, because, we've moved forward and we've progressed.
Yeah, I think on the face of it, if you look at it as... compared to, when was the last time we had a really good transfer window? You're probably talking the season we came up, 2018. But the bar was so much lower in terms of the quality within the squad. Automatically bringing in the likes of Moutinho, Patricio was going to just lift the level to such an extent. So we were working from a higher place right now. So it is naturally going to be more difficult to bring in the players to improve on that. But I think we've done it. My bigger issue at the moment, I think from what I've seen so far with Nunes especially, is he's not being used in the role I would have expected him to so far. He seems to be the one who's being asked to hit the box, get on the end of things and score goals, when I think his season goal tally high at the moment is like 3 or 4 from Sporting. He's only had a couple of seasons really of top level football, and asking him to then do a job that doesn't appear to be a natural fit for him is a bit of a strange one. So I hope to see him probably starting a little bit deeper going forward. But yeah, really, when you think about the likes of Kalajdzic, he's got a pedigree to speak of. Nathan Collins for me, I think, is an absolute shoo-in to be a top class centre half already for the next 3-4 years. And for what all the Burnley fans were telling us, yeah, bigger teams will come looking, because he does appear to just have that knack of absolutely locking off strikers, very commanding, and physically kind of dominates players as well, and good on the ball. I think I had a look at the FBref stats from the Bournemouth game, and I appreciate he had a lot of the ball and things, and it wasn't necessarily as penetrative as you would like it to be, but he completed 733 yards of progressive passes in that game, which I don't think I've ever seen a figure that high. So 86 out of 87 completed passes, something like that. Really, really tidy player, and I think we've got a centre half pairing for at least 2 to 3 years that we can rely upon.
Yeah, it's a major plus point at the start of the season. That is that those two. I mean, we look better than we did with 3 at the back, which is like
100%.
mad, really.
Yeah,
that was the fear. That was the fear as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. You get the right personnel and you can play that system, no problem at all. The errors that we've made at the back have come from the fullbacks, centre halves. Okay, he's had that shaky moment against Newcastle and what have you. But again, I think we were warned to that. He's still quite young. But him and Kilman look quality, and then you got to put Sarr in behind that, a commanding goalkeeper. They run forward as well. They bomb forward. I think it was by the corner flag about the 85th or 6th minute last night. Collins was. I was probably just getting pissed off that they're also shit ahead of him. But it's nice to see defenders coming out with the ball. Obviously, Cody would never have done that. Sace liked to come forward and have a ping from about 60 yards, but that was about the extent of what he did when he was going forward with the ball. So, quality, really, really, really good. And if you think of the players that have gone out, so we've lost Marcel, Boly, Cody, Sace, Gibbs-White, Donk. Let's face it, they're not. In the players you replace them with, they weren't like quality members of that team. So as a window, I think we'd be feeling so much better about things if obviously we just didn't have such a bad start to the season, but we'd be calling it like a 9 out of 10 window for me. But ultimately, proof's in the pudding. So if the players don't perform, it's not been a good window, has it? So you can only say at the end of the season.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's the awkward thing about me sort of saying. I will never say to you guys, don't worry. How would you review this transfer window out of 10? Because, if we lose the next 5 games, then it's kind of indicative, isn't it? But on paper, and at the moment, so I don't think we can be too displeased. The manager's very clearly been backed. All the players, you can see with literally all the players who have come in, they've come in for a reason, and there's like a logical step to them improving this team. And again, it's not even just about replacing them, because for me, if we bring in Jason tonight, he is essentially a replacement for Marcel / Sace in terms of experience figure in the team, arguably going to be third choice, and he knows that role, and you can drop him in when you need. And that's fine. But all the rest, you say at the current levels, Collins is an upgrade on Boly now, which is what we want. Nunes, again, he's essentially an extra. You could argue he is the upgrade on Dendoncker if you wanted to. They're basically playing in the same position at the moment, as you said, Dan. They're both having to play on that right hand side and break into the box as well. Kalinic, again, he's an additional player. You could argue maybe he's a replacement for Silva, who we'll definitely circle back onto in a couple of minutes' time. But between last transfer window and this transfer window, we've essentially secured the spine of the team when you include Sarr as well. Because Sarr was the major one from last season's summer transfer window. And you go, that's just solid. And we know we've got decent enough players out wide when they fancy it, like Semedo, like Aït-Nouri, like Neto. I know we joked he's having a bit of a pants start to the season, but there's quality there. I don't know, I'm happy with what's come in so far. You can argue slightly different on some of the outgoings. So there's a long list. There's obviously a few who we released. We released Ruddy, Sace and Marcel. We won't go over old ground too much on those because I think we all understood that they come to the end of their Wolves career, so to speak. Vinagra's move was made to Sporting Lisbon. We've had a few of our developmental players go out on loan, the likes of Giles and Sanderson, both championship clubs in Middlesbrough and Birmingham City. And I guess the first major transfer around Wolves outgoing was Fabio Silva. Fabio Silva's loan move to Anderlecht in Belgium. I was a bit frustrated with that at the time because I thought there was potential for him to play this season. Do you still? I know kind of good of you of similar
Sorry.
thoughts in let Don Fabio play, but go on.
I've got to stop you there. Ryan Bennett has cancelled his contract at Swansea. He's now a free agent.
Bring
nice.
him.
There's your backup
home.
centre half right there, boys and girls.
Scrap it. Scrap Jason Wright. Forget everything I've said for the last 55 minutes about getting him in. Bring Bennett back.
Jack's not here now, so it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, God, no.
There's going to be no beef.
Yeah. All good.
Tuck that shirt in, boys and girls.
Oh, yeah. But as now we've had a bit of time, Fabio Silva's played a few games. Are you still disappointed he's not in this squad, or do you think that low move is overall what's best for him, especially now that we've got in Sasha Kladnic?
Both, really. We'd have won last night if he'd have played. I put significant money on that. He'd have bagged that one that Jimenez missed, and probably another one or two. But yeah, it is what he needs. To be fair, he needed a whole season. It's like Mascara. He needs a whole full season of football, and he's Anderlecht fans absolutely love him. He started really, really well. I'd like to have seen what he'd done in these opening 5 games because obviously Raul wasn't fit for the first 2, and he's not been. He was average at Newcastle, and obviously he's been pretty terrible last night. So. I think he'd have done quite well in this team currently, but then again, hopefully let's say that the Kladnic should hopefully be our number 1 going forward, and I think hopefully he'll hit the ground running.
I was pining for Fabio last night.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Jesus, like Raul, mate. I mean, I was very angry with him last night. I've simmered down a little bit since then, but just the absolute insistence on losing the ball every time it came up to him was infuriating, and I think that's the most disappointing part of his game at the moment. I can deal with him not scoring, but when the ball's coming up to you and Chris Mepham and Lloyd Kelly are getting the better of you every single time you look to turn away with it or hold on to it, it's so disappointing, and everything breaks down from there because he's your main man. He's the focal point in the team. You do all the good work you want in progressing the play from the other parts of the pitch, but if your striker isn't offering anything whatsoever, you really are carrying a passenger. And to an extent, you might be able to do that in other parts of the pitch, but not there. It really still frustrates me in hindsight that we didn't give Fabio more minutes last season, because I think if he did get it, you'd almost be talking about him actually being our number 9. Starting number 9 this season. So, yeah, hopefully Sasha comes in and shows Raul what level is required. I think because, like you say, he's not necessarily had the competition to kind of force him into, booking his ideas up. And I mean, first things first about Kalajic. What a nice bloke! Like I'm sure we all watched his
bloody gentle giant of a man, isn't he?
Honestly, like the way. I mean. Everybody knows each other in football, really, don't they? And you assume a bloke who scored the goals he has in the Bundesliga, at least our players would be aware of him. But he's still and he's 6'7". I mean, for a start, but he's still insisting on walking up to everybody and saying, "Hi, I'm Sasha. Nice to meet you," as if he was like a nobody.
I have always found that very interesting when it comes to footballers, though. We presented Richard Stearman with like a Fancast Player of the Season T-shirt an ungodly amount of years ago now, and like we're doing it by the side of a tunnel, like before they even do the warm-ups, and he comes out, media guy pulls him over, and he goes, "Oh, hi, I'm Steers." And I was like,
Well, yeah, we fucking know.
yeah,
Yeah.
you are. It's like, but it's just it's just human, isn't it? At the end of the day, and it's just lovely. It's just wholesome, isn't it? And
Was that him like passing the ID check that you were going to do on him?
yeah,
Like some imposter turned up to take up the Fancast coming today. Let's send a body double.
how will we know it's really him?
Yeah.
But yeah, completely agree. I mean, you talk about Raul pre-injury. He didn't really have much competition. You know, Bonatini's still on our books?
Mm-hmm.
We've not shifted him, have we?
He's got half an hour left.
I tell you what, that's
the deal of the day we need to see come through. That's what's going to keep us awake tonight.
okay. Right, quick bets. Where is he going to end up? Is he going back to Saudi Arabia? Will he find a cushy one in Portugal? Let's just go to Forest. Yeah, hook up with Nuno. Perfect job for the boys.
We seem to have stopped doing deals with Famalicão, haven't we? I thought that was kind of the dumping ground for a little while.
Yeah.
But Al Ittihad sounds bright up his street, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Elder Costa's out there already.
He's done that before, I think.
Yeah,
I think
he
we signed him off.
Wolves,
we signed him from a Saudi
Al
Arabia.
Hilal. Yeah.
Al Hilal, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's got connections. It'll be perfect for him. But you know, essentially, you were right when we were saying about that was the best transfer window of the year. We signed Raul. The caliber, the difference was astonishing, particularly in Raul to Bonatini. But I guess they tried to give him competition in his second season with somebody else who's moved permanently, which is Patrick Catrone, who's gone over to Lake Como. I mean, could you put that down as well for worse?
Is he playing for Lake Como?
He is. Yes. He's going to
join the sailing team. Yeah.
Can you imagine? Yeah, we don't actually want you to play football for us. Can you steer a boat, though? Would you put it down as one of the worst Wolves transfers of all time?
It's got to be, hasn't it? Really, for the money.
Yeah. That's the only thing that beats Thomas Frankowski. He's the
well, that's it. Unless it, like, relatively speaking, Frankowski or Robert Taylor, because obviously the fees have gone mad. But yeah, Jesus, what a flop! And we've got no money back from him.
No, I mean, I believe there is a fee, but it's not been disclosed, which screams.
It'll be less than $1 million. It'll be next to
nothing. Screams nominal, doesn't it?
Yeah. Bad. I remember being reasonably excited when we signed him, though, because Milan fans were gutted he was going. I always look at that as my main sort of almost like scouting sort of thing, really. If the opposition fans, the selling teams fans are gutted that they're going, then they've got to be half decent. But I think that was a Thelwell job as well. To be fair, I mean, many mistakes, but that was one of them.
Considering Milan's trajectory since he left, and Catrone's career trajectory, I think they probably made the right decision, didn't they? They've gone on to win a title for the first time in quite a while.
Someone came out. I can't remember who it was. It might have even been Maldini. I think they were quoted saying we were given a load of stick for selling Catrone to Wolves, and instead we invested a few million in this kid from Portugal, i.e. Rafael. And he's like pretty much saying, look at him now. I'm sure that was this week, I read. And yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I'd love to sign him when we were linked a couple of years ago, but yeah, that shit's well sold by now.
Apparently Chelsea had offered 80 million for Leao, they were saying on Sky Sports this morning. So some of these players that we've been linked with and we've looked at, I think Edson Alvarez as well, who Chelsea had been linked to today. I think we were looking at him before he went to Ajax. Yeah. So we are skating in the right areas. It's just convincing people to come and join our project. Is the hardest part.
There is, I think, a sadness about the Catrone story, though, because I think he was kind of pushed away from Milan as opposed to us going and really kind of convincing him to join. And for him to have been kind of a bit of a local hero there at one point, he had a really good season the season before we actually signed him.
Yeah.
And to then go on the kind of downhill slope he has when he had a promising career. And yeah, you can understand why he might appear to be a bit moody around the club and things, because is what might have been kind of aspect to his time playing football. Now, I'm never going to begrudge a bloke kind of, moving to Como to play with Cesc Fabregas. And I think Thierry Henry's a shareholder there now as well. I think that was announced in the week. So I'm sure he'll enjoy himself. And he's a Como boy as well, from what I understand. So, home cooked meals by mom and all that kind of stuff. That'd be nice.
Bit of pizza,
Pizza and pasta. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Did it come out? He likes neither.
Yeah. At least we've done to death that chant as well, as much as anything else. I guess I'll say two that happened in pretty quick succession was the Conor Cody loan move, which again, it seemed that over the past 6 to 12 months, particularly, I mean, no longer than that, if we're going to be honest. Under Nuno's time, it seemed like it was starting to fray with him at Wolves. Particularly when he got subbed off against the Albion, and it felt very fractured at that point, and we kind of continued, and it felt like it was time for him to move on, in my opinion, at that point. And yeah, my big thing is, we started the season not particularly well, but none of it is because of not being in a back five with Conor Cody. We if anything, it feels like we'd be somehow worse off, I think.
Yeah, I feel a lot better about it now. I was always one of the, I thought, well, is he going to revert to a 2-3 at the back against the bigger boys, and revert to type? But he didn't against Spurs, so I can't really see it happening. City's a write-off as it is anyway. We'll see what he does against City, but that's going to be a write-off as it is. So yeah, I'm okay with it. Again, he was just a victim of the system change, wasn't he? To be fair, so and again, I think, like echoing what Goody said earlier, it just felt like it was the end of his cycle, of his time. And again, he served us really well. It's still a legend in my eyes. But yeah, the time was there now for him to move on.
Sorry guys, I've got to interrupt with probably the best deadline day story that we've had. Bamba Dieng, I don't know if anybody's been following his movements today. Marseille player who is linked to Leeds. Yeah. So Leeds have been looking at a forward, I think, today. They obviously apparently had a bid rejected by us for Hwang. They were looking at Cody Gakpo from PSV. And I think there was a disappointment that the Gakpo thing didn't happen. But Andrea Radrizzani actually tweeted someone saying, it's disappointing about Gakpo, but let's get behind Bamba Dieng, who he name-checked in the tweet that he was going to be joining the club. Now, Dieng was actually sat on a private jet in France, ready to kind of make the move over to England to go and speak to Leeds. While he was on the jet, he got a call from Nice, who put in an offer, and he decided that he'd rather go and join Nice. At the last minute, he's actually failed his medical to join Nice. Amazing. So he's ultimately going to end up not going anywhere whatsoever and stay at Marseille. So Leeds were gazumped only to then have him fail his medical and ultimately, I guess, have no forward signed at the end of this transfer window. There is still time if you did want to pick up the phone for Hwang, guys. So I'm sure Jeff's phone is always on and ready to accept a call.
He's on flight mode. Let's be honest. Jeff's already locked in flight mode for the evening. He's driving back.
Surely for everyone apart from Leeds. Surely from everyone apart from Leeds, clinging on to that fact he could still sell Hwang. Surely.
Oh, just what a day Bamba Dieng has had there. Jesus.
I tell you, it's a nightmare of a day, isn't it? Before we talk about Gibbs-White, let's talk about Hwang, because there's been some transfers that haven't happened, and that feels like it is one. I just feel sorry for him at this point. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe.
It's not his fault.
It's not his fault. He's shit.
Yeah, it's not his
Yeah,
fault.
it's true.
We're
Yeah.
basically driving him out of a club, and it's because he's a bit crap. But I mean, if it's true, we genuinely rejected 17 million for him, which would have been no profit, as far as I'm aware, right? Like
Yeah.
we've made like a couple of million on the transfer fee. I don't know why you wouldn't just cut your losses, because there's players out there for around that money, which I think could just do a better job, who'd fit in with the system, or give you something slightly different to what he's doing anyway.
I mean, I said this probably a few days ago when the talk of Hwang potentially leaving first came out, and there was a bit of a mob of fans on Twitter that it seemingly insisted on it happening. I just thought, fair enough, okay, maybe you don't want him to be a Wolves player just because you don't rate him and whatnot, but I still think at that point, when you looked at our forward options as a collective, Hwang wasn't a detriment to that in the sense that, he was taking something away by just being there. I think we see him as not being a starter, but he actually adds something slightly different anyway. I don't think Pedro Neto had a very good game at all against Bournemouth. He wasn't really offering anything against a deep defence. And I'm not saying this as Hwang should be starting ahead of Neto kind of thing. But if you threw Hwang on as a potential, with the way the game was going, in terms of crosses into the box, lots of penalty area action, and we've seen him just, capitalise on little chances in the penalty area before. As a player who can potentially get on the end of something in the box for the last 10 minutes, would he have been a better option than probably Neto? Probably. He's got a bit more of a knack to actually getting on the end of things than Neto has. So while I agree he's not been a good signing, he's not an effective footballer to play 70, 80 minutes of a football match, I don't think losing him would have given us anything. In terms of, because we weren't going to bring anyone in, I don't think. I don't think we ever saw anybody come in to replace him, and especially if you had the potential of someone like Adama just disappearing at the drop of a hat because he is really on the market. So then you just got one less body. So while he's clearly having a bad time of it, and while I don't really want to see him playing a lot of minutes, there's no harm in him just being there.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is a shame. It is a shame. I agree. On the flip side to that is his value going to be any higher than it is now? Say he plays no minutes, or he's worse. He's really, really shit. You're not going to get anywhere close to 17 million.
I am waiting to be clipped up by someone saying Hwang should have come on for Neto yesterday, but
I get the logic. Because you say Hwang isn't necessarily the most effective footballers, but he has a knack of getting in the right areas, which is more than you can say, frankly, about even Raul at the moment.
He'd have done a better job with that chance at Raul yesterday.
I think he would have. I genuinely think he would have. Yeah.
I don't think actually his finishing can be. I can't really think of any obvious chances he's missed. He's just got the world's worst first touch, and he struggles to kick a football straight. But actually, when he's by the goal, he's actually not too bad.
But this is the thing, and I guess it's not the right way to look at a forward player. But some players' best work is done off the ball, and the runs that he makes kind of from the flank in towards the centre of the pitch are more dangerous than some others. Neto is naturally going to hang wide. He doesn't seem to make those runs in between fullback and centre half to get on the end of things. So if you do need to change it up, change the dynamic of the attack, and have someone literally just say to him, just keep making runs in behind. I don't want you to get involved in build-up play, but you know what? A chance might come from you making those runs insistently. So keep doing it, see what happens. And like you say, I think his chance conversion is actually quite good. People have misread his abilities totally. The commentary around him is he can't hit a barn door. It's not the case. It's absolutely not a fact. What you can say about him is he's not a good technical footballer, but judge him correctly rather than just judging him by talking shit, I think is the bottom line.
Yeah, I think he should have. He should have been in the first game of the season against Leeds. He should have been the reason we won that game because he played exceptionally well. He's a big part of that goal. His hold-up play was brilliant. He brought in the Pedence and Neto into the game brilliantly, and it's just what has been the story of our season so far. Our individual errors meant that we didn't win that game, but you change it. We win that game 1-0. Hwang gets the assist, and then he should come away with the plaudits, but he doesn't get the credit he deserves. Like you say, the good things that he does do, which is his, like you say, his off the ball work and linking up play, creating space for other people to run into. That he's he gets a lot of stick and abuse from people who want him to be this guy who runs the ball 20, 30 yards and smashes it in the top corner, and he's not that sort of player. So people have just got to be a bit more realistic and think about actually what he does bring to the team and what positives that he brings. And having players like this who are willing to be runners and willing to put work rate in and effort, they're going to be crucial to the squad. So selling him with the idea of bringing no one else in would have been detrimental to Wolves moving forward. At 17 million, fair enough, it's a good price, but it's if we're not going to spend it on another forward, then it's pointless because we're only weakening our own position.
Yeah,
I think Boy feels that the club never really had an intention to sell. So, fingers crossed, we can find a place for him in this new system. You've got to hope. Something that occurred to me as I spin it off on another tangent, if you don't mind, is Boly's contract was due to expire at the end of this season. Was Dendoncker's expected to expire this season, but he had an option of an extension?
Yeah, so 2 years left, pretty much.
So one thing I think the club do deserve credit for is cashing in on those players now, because we've kind of noted that we lost Sace on a free, we lost Marcel on a free, and Ruddy on a free. Now I know the market value of John Ruddy is low. You could probably say the same for Marcel, but I do think it's clever of the club to make that decision early on, instead of being the situation that we're in with Adama, where we are going to lose someone who has a good value assigned to him, essentially for nothing in 12 months' time. And that nicely, now I've given my bit of thought, comes me back on the subject around Adama Traore. And we talked about Neves. No one really came in for him properly. There was muted rumours of Liverpool reportedly admiring him, whatever the fuck that means. But no, there seems to have been very little talk around Adama Traore this summer.
Yeah, I think that just tells you how his stock's fallen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think it's probably more about that than anything else. And I think you're right about the contract thing. I think it's more to do with what happened to it with Adama, really. You had who you could have probably sold, at the peak of his powers, you probably could have sold him for sort of 40, 50 million. And maybe leasing the guy on a free. And, obviously we know how tragically bad the deal was that we struck in January with Barca. But again, I know it wasn't massive money, but I think that on that summer, if I remember rightly, I think it was still a pitiful offer, but I think Spurs offered like 15 million or something at the start of that season. And then in January, I think he probably could have got similar, 15, 20, something like that. And now you're going to get nothing. So, and I think it was also borne out in the Fabio loan move. They made sure that they put more years on his contract before they sent him away, just so that, it wasn't a year on his contract that he just wound down here. So yeah, I agree. I think they've done pretty well as a selling club this window.
Definitely. In terms of a couple of additional outgoings, the last one, well, actually, no, it's two I want to talk about. The first one's Gibbs-White, and I think we've all just gone, the money involved, you can't not say yes to it. The fact that we've got 26 up front for a player who's had, arguably, one good season in the Championship, and will probably make another 5 million by the end of this season. I like Gibbs-White. I genuinely hope he does well. He needs to fight his way past about 50 other Nottingham Forest players to get in the team. But yeah, Jafo, were you sad to see him go as a local lad, an academy prospect, or you know what, that money, fuck it?
I'm going to be quite blunt and say no, I'm not that bothered. I'm genuinely not that fussed. I mean, he's in a Wolves shirt. Has he really done anything? No. He's played well in the Championship with Sheffield United, and he played well when he was at Swansea. You get offered that sort of money for a player who, at the start of this season, in the chances that he's been given to perform and to try and do something, he's done nothing. It's the status quo again. He's been the same player in the games that he was given at the start of the season. Snap their hand off as soon as that amount of money's put on the table. You know, to pay something for some, you know, that's the sort of money that you're paying for a full international. 30, what is essentially going to be 30 odd million pounds. It's incredible that you throw that out on someone who's, like we say, had one good Championship season and has never done anything in the Premier League. I think has got one Premier League goal, one Premier League assist, and you throw that sort of money out there. It is incredible. If it was, on the other hand, and it was Lingard they were paying that for, I'd understand. But not Gibbs-White, and I think that's going to bite him in the arse. Hopefully not, because I hope Morgan does really well. But I think it's going to bite him in the arse, and he's not going to perform to the level that they expect and what Steve Cooper expects.
You muted, Gully.
I'll be back. I've only been doing that for like 3 years on Zoom Teams meetings. I think at the point they had a bid rejected. It was Carl Anker, what for the Athletic, said something like, as a promoted club, you cannot be bidding £35 million for Morgan Gibbs-White. As a club receiving a £35 million bid for Morgan Gibbs-White, you can't not be accepting it. Like it just summed it up, because you know, it was so outlandish that they were making the bid and we were still pushing them for, like, you know, more money, squeeze them out. And I mean, they must have had some intel from the, you know, sources that, you know, Steve Cooper was absolutely hell-bent, and Mr. Marinakis was willing to back him on that. And to be fair, I mean, I watched a fair portion of the Spurs Forest game and he looked good. And I wonder if maybe they will squeeze a bit more out of him than we were looking like we were going to. So for him, maybe the move might make sense in terms of his own individual development as a player. They could get relegated and he could come out, you know, with a lot of credit and still be a Premier League player next season, which in real terms probably doesn't make it a bad move for him. But you know, it's I think it's good business on our part for sure. You can't really argue with it.
Cutting to some breaking news. Aston Villa have made another signing, and it's Jan Bednarak. So I don't know how that impacts Wolves' transfer dealings for a centre half.
That's the reason why the Dawson deal didn't happen, because Bednarak was going to go to West Ham, and then Dawson was going to come to us. So as soon as Bednarak chose Villa, the deal was off. So I think it's been the pipeline for a bit, but yeah.
You can tell their ambitions are to finish mid-table this season, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I know Bednarak's been touted for, say, a few of the names in and around Wolves' league position aspirations. I was quite glad to see him not linked to us.
I don't know what the hype is around. Well, I say hype. It's clearly not hype, but you know, in the sense that, you know, a number of teams were looking at him thinking, you know, I fancy a bit of that. I didn't really get it. I get
Do you think
these
yeah. Do you think it screams agents involved?
Possibly.
Judging by the number of teams that we know that there's a few teams on the lookout or whatever. Because it just seems a very average centre half.
If he's no longer good enough for Southampton, you know, you've got to kind of think about it, I guess. Yeah.
He's one of those players that you look at the opposition team sheet and you're happy he's playing.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. He's like a Matt Target. He's just like, yeah, I'm quite happy you're playing and not someone else, because I know that we can get at you. And you got a ruck in him or a red card. So,
I mean, I guess we should be unhappy that he isn't going to be playing on Saturday.
That's true. Yeah.
Salisu's decent, to be fair, and Bella Kochov apparently has really started the season well. So maybe Southampton will be a bit more formidable.
speaking of Southampton, they've made the loan signing of former Wolves target Ainsley Maitland-Niles as well, on loan with the option for permanent. And again, he's someone whose career massively restored after essentially rejecting us, or Arsenal upping the ante for like doubled the price, didn't they, at the last minute, which was frustrating.
I think he was at Roma last week.
Yeah,
He was. He was
flopped.
under Jose.
Weird career, very strange career.
Yeah. Again, I sort of hope he kind of finds a path, because he's someone who always had a bit of quality. I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely not stressing and refreshing Twitter quite a lot whilst this show's going on, because it is 2 minutes to 11, which means the transfer window.
And we've not announced Traore yet, have we?
No, I don't know. It almost feels like Wolves are about to just pull up fast one late doors. But we've talked about midfielders. We've talked about that we're lacking in depth. But we have let another one go, haven't we, Gully?
Go on.
Bruno Jordao.
Oh, shit.
The most forgettable man in the world.
We hardly knew you, didn't we?
Some say he's still trying to get on.
Yeah. That was his greatest contribution to the club, wasn't it? Just that image of him waiting to... I can't remember how long he was waiting for. It was basically the whole of injury time, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, it's almost 10 minutes. He's standing there on the touchline trying to get on. Ridiculous. If that's your most memorable moment in a Wolves shirt, that's saying something. I mean, he is the second man in that Neto deal, and it felt a bit like he was added in for us to do a favour to them.
It's like your mum lets you go out, like Pedro Neto's mum let him go out, but she said, "Oh, you got to take your little brother with you." Like Bruno Jordao was like the tag along that had to come with it, and he's just kind of sat in the corner, just entertaining himself. There you go. Never mind.
I mean, he has gone on loan, as sort of mentioned, to Santa Clara. That's a career that's just nosedived through injury and poor loans, and again, I think I've got a whole feeling his contract's not due up for another year. I think he's still got 2 years left on his deal for some reason.
It's like Bonatini. Like, I can't believe his contract's still running.
Yeah,
he's still got like this year to run, hasn't he? It's just crazy. He gives out the deals. Usually now, I mean, the amount of times now we're signing players with on contracts with an option. Whereas Kaladzic was like 5 years with an option, so in effect it's like potentially like a 6-year deal.
Yeah, every player seems to be 5 years minimum. I think almost just to do that whole kind of value protection kind of thing.
Yeah.
Officially, the transfer window is closed, guys. It is 11 o'clock.
Has the transfer window door slammed shut?
Yeah, slam shut.
There we go. Nobody's got Traore confirmation yet. But,
I was going to say, according to Liam Keno, transfer deadline is done and Wolves have got a deal over the line for Bamba Traore. Official announcement still to come, but season-long loan with a 9.5 million option is done. No centre-half after Craig Dawson deal collapsed. Another window over. So that sort of rounds it up, to be honest. Bit of a damp squid, but it's, I don't know, really. I think overall the window's been solid.
Actually, there's been a Steve Madeley bomb. There we go.
Be a good one.
Wolves set to sign defender Alfie Pond from Exeter. 500 grand. Cancelled the loan at Yeovil to move to Molineux. Very much one for the under-21s. We knew we were going to see how it would go with that. Signing for the under-21s.
Yeah,
we knew it was going to happen. There we go. You heard it here first, guys. Well, I say you heard it here first, but Alfie Pond, new man, down at Molineux. How can you not be pleased? Is a defender? We've got our backup defender. There we go.
Exactly. Why were we stressing? We could have. Yeah.
That's the most non-foreign sounding name I've ever heard. Like, he would not pass for Portuguese. What is that?
No. Alfredo Pondo.
Yeah, that's it. There's he are.
Oh, I think only time's going to tell. If we assume that Bamba Traore signed, I think I'm happy with the additions. Satisfied with the Outgoings. We've just got to cross our fingers and hope Wolves turn it around on Saturday against Southampton, I guess, haven't we?
Yeah. When does the manager transfer window open?
Oh,
Tomorrow. Okay. Well, I think it'll be Saturday, depending on the results. But
given Scott Parker's already gone, I guess it's almost going to open the floodgates in that sense, isn't it? It's got everyone's got a lot to do it now. So
I mean, I do think the signings that Wolves have made do kind of not negate the manager, but it doesn't feel that they're all Bruno Lage signings, so to speak. They seem that they are systematic signings. So actually, if they do replace them, there are players that will come in where a new manager's not going to get upset that he has them, in my opinion. So I hope our Sunday show is going to be a little bit more positive. However, from the Bournemouth show was doing last night with Jafo, Dan and Stu, I want us to get back to winning ways. Quick predictions for the game. How do we think we're going to do?
Oh, I'm going to go really optimistic and go 1-0 Wolves. And it's depressing when you're being really optimistic for a 1-0 win against Southampton at home. But let's do it.
Jafo, how about you?
But I'll be really optimistic as well. I'll get 2-1. Sasha get a goal on his debut.
Oh, Gully, are you going to keep up the optimistic streak?
Look, I'm definitely not going to call out a scoring more than one goal. So it's just going to have to be a 1-0 win, isn't it? So yeah, I'll back that.
Yeah, I'm with the same 1-0.
Guedes, I'll go for Guedes with a goal.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to go for Big Max Kilman. Towering header.
It's just not what we need, is it? You just like
No.
How frustrating would it be if we won with our freaking centre half scoring? Like,
I don't complain. Jesus, don't complain. Take a win
no,
now,
it's so true. It's just like, yeah, I wanted us to win, but not like that.
Yeah, we're all going to be relieved, and people like me and you, Gully, are going to go, yeah, but it doesn't kind of address the underlying issues, and you're going to get called all these names on Twitter, and if that's not the joy of football, then I don't know what is. So, but we'll see. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in for the last hour and a half for our transfer roundup. Make sure you check us out on social media at Wolves Fancast, and big shouts out to Pixel, Yeti Media, and 90 Min. Of course, as I said, we'll be back on Sunday to review the Southampton game. But until then, it's goodbye from Gully.
See you guys.
It's goodbye from Jafo.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Tom.
See you guys.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time.